Hi everyone. So today is a very, very important day, not only for England, but also for the Christian faith as well. And that is St. George's Day. Now, St. George's Day is typically celebrated on the 23rd. However, because it sort of crosses over with the sort of holy holiday, the Holy Week, it has been pushed back to the 28th. Hence why I'm releasing this on the 28th, not the 23rd. So, yeah, as many people know, St. George is the patron saint of England. So, but we're not the only ones that celebrate St. George's Day. So, there's many parts of Eastern Orthodoxy and many parts of Catholics as well, where they celebrate St. George's Day. Places like Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Bulgaria, I believe they do, and Ethiopia. I think they're the ones I really remember. I can't remember all of them, but they celebrate St. George's Day as well. St. George is held in many countries as a very, very highly respected saint. All saints are respected, obviously, the Christian faith, but he's been titled the Megalo Saint or Mega Saint. There's many others with that title as well, but he's one of them, and he's very revered in different countries, and he's very celebrated. So, I always love hearing about the stories. There's two main stories that's linked to St. George. The first one being that he was a Cappadocian, I think that's how you say it, Cappadocian Greek, which is the modern day Turkey, and he served in the Roman army, and he climbed all the way up to arguably the most prestige military position you can gain, which was the Praetorian Guard. So for anyone who doesn't know what Praetorian Guard is, basically Praetorian Guard is a position in the Roman army that was the personal bodyguard, and it was made up of the elite warriors at that time. It was a personal bodyguard to the emperor, which I believe was Diocles. I think that's pronouncing it right at the time, and he was given some would say a difficult choice. Some others probably say wouldn't be that difficult, especially Christians. It's not that difficult, and the choice was quite simple. You either denounce your faith, denounce Christ, or you die. And he chose to die, and he then became a martyr, as what Christians call a martyr for the faith, because he died for the faith and didn't denounce it in the end. So, and then you have the other, which is quite related to, I guess you could say, England as well, which was the Dragon Slayer, George and the Dragon. So the story goes, in Libya, at some point in time, there was this city or village that was being consistently attacked by a dragon. And in order for them to stop it, they had to offer 2 sheep in order to this dragon. And at some point, they either ran out of sheep, or the dragon didn't want sheep anymore, so they had to start giving humans. And the way they did that is they would go by sort of a vote. They would vote who would go up and basically be eaten alive or killed or whatever by this dragon. And at some point, it was elected that the princess would go, which was obviously the king's daughter. Now, no one would take the princess place, so she had to go up there until St. George arrived with his big lance, and he offered to slay the dragon. So obviously that to put an end to this, to sort of the suffering that they're experiencing. So he went up and he slayed the dragon, and he came back down, and everyone was cheering him and celebrating him. And then the king came in and gave him riches and rewards and this and the other, but he chose to turn it down. He chose to give it all to the poor, the people who actually needed it. And it was rumoured that all those people who he gave to, and the entire city and village, was baptised, and they became Christians. So I really love those two stories. I think they really sit into England quite well, especially in recent times. Especially the story with, I guess you could say both be related, especially when it comes to, when he was, given that sort of challenge to sort of denounce his faith or to face death. And, again, for Christians, it's quite an easy choice, to maybe some people's surprise. But, for some people, it is a difficult choice to make. But, I always like using it as this sort of relation to England when it came to like the World War II, for example. And obviously World War II was fought in by the British, and it was including Scottish and Irish and Welsh, and there was also Polish, and there was French as well, loads of different areas. But, if we used to focus on England specifically, there was a time, again, similar to other countries, where you had the Nazi war machine that engulfed virtually all of Europe. And basically, sort of Britain was the last sort of standing one they wanted to conquer. And there was a period of time, especially during the Blitz and the Battle of Britain, where we chose to stand firm for what we believed in, and we chose not to succumb to a tyrant. And I think that relates to St. George quite well. He didn't succumb to what they wanted of him. He knew what he believed in, and he was willing to give his life. That's similar to the pilots that flew over, the Battle of Britain. God rest their souls for anyone that lost their lives. All the maybe women and children and all the men on the ground as well that sadly lost their lives in the Blitz. We still stood firm, and we put our lives on the line, or they put their lives on the line, for what they believed in and what they held to be true. And that's obviously a fundamental part of the Christian faith as well. And it's very, very important to hold that. And another great example was the Coptic Christians that was sadly brutally murdered by ISIS in 2014. You guys may have heard of this, the ones with the orange jumpsuits. They all became martyrs and saints as well. So I think that St. George is a fantastic representation of England. I know in modern day, I hear conversations every now and then that because of how we're governed and how we're, the people that we have running us and how we are seen on the world stage now and all this other stuff may not represent that. But I think, I always say it's like a stock market. You go up and you go down, and there's always periods. There's going to be bad periods and good periods. But I think overall, the essence of England, the essence of, the sort of history that we have represents that very, very well. And I think it's proud to celebrate St. George's Day. And, whether you're Christian, whether you're atheist or whatnot, I know many people are atheists, still celebrate St. George's Day, obviously in relation to England itself, national pride and things like that, which is obviously very important. But obviously for Christians, remember what St. George did and what he died for, and sort of reminding us of how we should conduct our lives is obviously very important as well. So, I hope you guys have found this enjoyable. I wanted to make this as short as possible, which I'm able to do, which is great. So I just want to say happy St. George's Day to every single one of you. Hopefully we're doing something on base, and I don't know if we actually do. I hope so. Well, if not, I'll be doing something at home, maybe baking some gingerbreads and putting some England cross, or I'll put the England flag up somewhere. I haven't got a flagpole, but put it up somewhere. I'll find somewhere to put it, and to celebrate St. George's Day. So. Yeah, happy St. George's Day, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one, whenever that is. Take care. Bye-bye.